Welcome to the Canadian Homeschooler Podcast, where we have real conversations about all things homeschooling from a Canadian perspective. We are your hosts, Lisa Marie and Elena, and in this episode, we're going to talk about the skilled trades with our special guest, Larry La Gamba from Trade Links Consulting. So grab your favorite drink and come join us on the couch. So we're back with another episode of the Canadian Homeschooler Podcast, and I'm super excited today because we have a special guest joining us. Today we are joined by Larry La Gamba from Trade Links Consulting. So welcome, Larry.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to get to know you. Could you tell us a little bit more about you and your company and what your mission is?
Sure. Yeah. So just to kind of dive right in. So a couple things that I do and have done. So Trade Links Consulting, I advise aspiring tradespeople and trades entrepreneurs. I was an elementary and high school teacher for 10 years, owned and operated 2 businesses, with my most recent being a swimming pool leak detection and underwater repair company that did a lot of work residentially and work commercially, municipally, along with other pool contractors across the Greater Toronto area. So part of that work was using highly sophisticated electronic equipment to pinpoint sources of water loss in aquatic vessels, and like I mentioned, a lot of mainly residential work, but commercial, municipal swimming pools, with my personal favorite being the Toronto Zoo Penguin and Hippo pool. That was a couple of years ago, which was really nice, and turned that into a fundraising opportunity that raised, I believe it's been a couple of years, it was $2,000 for CAMH here in Halton. And now what I'm doing a couple of things. So the crux of it, through my community outreach and through the consultancy, is just trying to help people navigate the skilled trades and entrepreneurial pathway through the skilled trades mentorship group on Facebook, and the consultancy, which has 2 main programs to do that. So I have a Trade Explorer and a Lighthouse program. And what Trade Explorer is essentially to help find the best fit skilled trade for the individual that I'm working with. So I deal with a lot of graduates, homeschool students, and students that are currently in the system, typically anywhere from age 14, 15 and up. Lately, it's been a lot of graduates that are looking for opportunities in the trades and are really trying to get an idea as to where they would be best suited for, and where their skill sets and interests and preferences, abilities, and so on would line up into. And Lighthouse is essentially helping individuals launch their own skilled trades business or home service business. And even though that's been the focus, there have been quite a few lately that I've been dealing with that are experienced operators. So what I've been doing with them is just helping them optimize systems, processes, operations, and things that are just best practices in general.
So what inspired you to become a skilled trades consultant? Like, what started that journey for you to move from having your own business to helping other people?
So interestingly enough, so with all the experience I have, like with the education and being in business and all that, and teaching, and how everything's kind of lined up. So seeing, I guess I would say, in the last year or so, what prompted me to start, it all started with the Skilled Trades Mentorship Group, which initially was the Georgetown Skilled Trades Mentorship Group, which now has kind of opened up its borders a little bit more to the greater community beyond that. And I started that group just because there's obviously this known demand, there's no need for skilled trades workers and all that. And that's been something that's been widely talked about for many years now. And in addition to that, last year, I was starting to see news reports come up more often than I've ever seen before about violent youth crime. So at least once a week, you're seeing things coming out about how some individual who was aged either between, I even saw, I think it was as young as 13 up to 16 years old, give or take that age range. These individuals were committing some pretty heinous crimes. And you have to kind of, say what you want, judge all you want, but I think it's really important to kind of understand the why behind that and really kind of do a deeper dive. And that's my criminology background. I was a criminology student at York University when I was getting my teaching degree there concurrently. And what I love about criminology, and this is a mindset that I've taken everywhere and kind of has helped me in all aspects of business and in relationships and everything like that, is really kind of questioning why things are the way they are, why they're happening, or why they're presented the way they are. So we really did a deep dive. I remember our first year in criminology and kind of doing a lot of investigative work into how statistics are portrayed in the media and so on and so forth, but just even criminality and criminal behavior. We're talking about young students here, and this is the age group of these are the age group of students that I was teaching when I was in teaching. So for me to see like a class full of students and say, okay, there's going to be a couple of them, they're going to be in the news for doing something pretty serious is tough to grasp. And I just, you start thinking, why is it happening? Because until you start kind of grasping with that question, you'll never get to the how. And it's one thing to look at and judge and so on and so forth, but we're not really going past, I guess, that if we're not trying to understand and fix the problem, so to speak, and see if there are any other opportunities or supports or anything in general that should be put in place to help these individuals to give them a better path. Who knows, maybe we're these students, individuals that slip through the cracks and are now looking at crime as an option. They're looking for belonging. They're looking for an opportunity there, so to speak. And all these individuals, they have talents. It's just, are they being recognized, and are they being channeled, and are they being kind of put on the path that they should be? And I know, seeing it for myself in teaching and in the community work that I'm doing, that there are a lot of great people that are they're in need of that direction, they're in need of that support, they're in need of that mentorship. And that's where the skilled trades mentorship group started. And we've been able to do a lot of work with that and been making amazing connections, along with connecting with yourself and Elena through it, which has been fantastic. And doing a lot of presentations and having a lot of conversations with people in the community about kind of putting them on the best path and trying to get them on the best path for skilled trades and so on and so forth. Because if I look at it from my own personal perspective, like mentorship has played such a key role in my personal and professional career. And if it wasn't for my mentors and those key people in my life, I wouldn't be anywhere close to where I am right now. I mean, not to say that I'm, you know what I mean, not anywhere but like, I mean, it could have been a lot worse. I mean, I lost my father when I was 20, and he was somebody that I always consulted for advice. Any business thing that would come up, I would always run it by him and just I always leaned on him. So losing him, it was kind of difficult. Like there was that gap there, and I know that feels like not having people to count on and rely on. So it's been trying to, I guess, aspire to be what those people were for me, I want to be for other people, type of thing. So that's been key. And I mean, ultimately, my pathway to this industry, to the swimming pool industry, primarily because that's where I spent 20 years of my life in. 20, so yeah, 3 to 4 in the commercial maintenance aspect of it, and 17 of those 20 years was on my own. There's a year of overlap there, and it wasn't supported by everybody. It was my decision to get out there and be in a line of work that required me to work with my hands was deemed as second class, and not something that was supported, as I had an older brother who was going to school at the time to become a lawyer. So it was, you have to wear the suit and tie to be successful. Anything else but that is deemed a second class career choice, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of playing with that a bit, and to be honest with you, I fought tooth and nail for it in the sense that, like, I knew what I wanted, and I stood up for what I believed in, even if it didn't make me popular. It caused a lot of tension and rifts in the home front. So it was tricky to navigate that at first, but I'm glad I did that, and ultimately I'm able to speak to that now. And I see similar attitudes today with people who view the skilled trades in a negative light, or you have students and individuals, you have the youth that are not being given a full perspective of career options and are being guided away from careers in the trades for different reasons and different motivations and so on, when those trades can be equally, or those careers can be as equally fulfilling on all levels as any other career. So I think it's important that people like myself and others that we'll kind of get into it a little bit have their voices heard, and that we have the opportunity to speak about that. So yeah, I mean, part of it is kind of it's a personal thing. There's a huge personal connection to this on multiple levels, and it's something that you hate to see people potentially falling into a similar pattern when there could be some direction, some guidance that could help them out of that.
Okay, so the question I have is, what exactly is defined as a skilled trade? Like, how do we know what's a trade? Like, I guess that's kind of where my brain always goes. Because, usually when you think of trades, I think automatically think of carpenter or, those kinds of things. And that's one, but I know that the list is way bigger than that. So what is a skilled trade?
Essentially, if you look at let's look at in Ontario, right? Like let's kind of pull that up. If you go to Skilled Trades Ontario, that website, they have 144 trades listed. And that's essentially what is defined as that. But essentially, different fields of work that will fall under that classification, we tend to really focus on the big three, and basically being electrical, HVAC, refrigeration, and plumbing, and carpentry is up there too. But basically, the skilled trades, the keyword, they're being skilled. So this is essentially requiring more specialized training, in the form of apprenticeships, trade schools, and all that kind of stuff. Like, to me, it requires obviously more skill sets, more knowledge, more schooling, and so on and so forth. So I always encourage people to go on Skilled Trades Ontario website to look at what is on that list. But it is important to note that that's actually not an exhaustive list. And there's so many amazing trades that are not on there that should be, including ones in the swimming pool industry, ones in landscaping, even aircraft technician, avionics, like it's not on there either. And it begs the question as to why not. But part of our conversation, we're going to get more into a deeper dive about that in terms of, kind of keeping a broader and an open mind when it comes down to looking at trades. But yeah, that's, I guess, to answer that question in, I guess, as brief of a way possible is what I would say there. Yeah.
Why do you think skilled trades are essential for shaping tomorrow's workforce?
Awesome question. And I think this is something that, it's part of, I guess, myth busting and kind of attacking these misconceptions head on, because the truth is the skilled trades are so fundamental for society's infrastructure and functioning: construction, plumbing, electrical work, automotive repair. Like, skilled trades people and their fingerprints are ultimately seen everywhere, and all the things that we are able to use and take care of, like, on a daily basis. So you might think, okay, like an automobile, if you look at one thing, for example, you have to kind of come to terms with how many trades people were involved in the creation of that automobile. You even talk about the millwrights at the plants, the machinery, the individuals on the assembly lines. You get into the automotive technician aspect of it for maintenance. You get into so many different moving parts and moving pieces that are what are keeping that automobile on the road, from home construction. Like, honestly, I think you'd be very hard pressed to look at something that you use in your everyday life and not trace that back to a tradesperson, indirectly or directly. Like, their fingerprints are on it to some degree. And I think it's important to kind of, it's important to note that. I mean, like, yeah, we don't realize these things when we talk about this, or when you hear the negative rhetoric about the trades and so on and so forth. It's like, I can understand where that perspective is coming from. I think it's always important to hear them out to whatever degree it is, and just kind of put to them in a bigger picture way. Like, it's a lot of the things that we have and enjoy are because of tradespeople. So we need to understand, respect, and value that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's like, we often need those kinds of careers. Like, people, we're crying out for them, saying, like, we need people to do this kind of work. And then people aren't interested in it. I don't know. Like, I grew up with hearing over and over when I was younger, like, oh no, like, if you're smart, you go to university. Like, that was just pushed. And it was, well, okay, so people who go to college or trades aren't smart. Like, that doesn't make sense. But that's what I basically heard. And it's so wrong, because you can be smart in so many different ways, and different careers need different things. But it was like, I don't know. I remember my graduating class, it's like pretty much everybody went off to university. People weren't choosing colleges or trades. And it's really sad that they don't.
And if they did,
fix that, like, but I think that's the mentality. And I mean, maybe it shifted somewhat in schools now. I don't know. I'm hoping. But I think those of us that were the parents now that went to school with that mentality, then we kind of ourselves might have some biases. I mean, I don't feel that way, but it was taught to us. So
yes.
Then, our own kids, they're like, oh, I want to look at this. And it's like, oh, no, you're smart. You go to university. Like, no, that's not best for every kid.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny, because right now I'm dealing with quite a few individuals that, like I mentioned, they're out of the school system, in the workforce. They want to make a career change because they realize their professional career is not what they don't want that anymore. They're looking to get into the trades, and it's interesting what you're saying. Like, yes, I think that the pendulum has swung to a certain degree. Certainly not far enough from what I'm seeing. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of good things happening in the community. I'm seeing the school boards doing a lot of amazing things and promoting things. I mean, it's better late than never, I guess. But at the same time, that's not enough. Like, there still needs to be a continuation of this, and it needs to come from people with their boots on the ground. And I think that's where it lands the most. It's more authentic that way, because sometimes you kind of question agendas politically and so on and so forth when it's coming from different areas. So I think having that kind of independence from all that stuff is important too. But kind of to your point, like, yeah, I remember the exact same. I went to an academic high school as well, and I remember anybody that was claiming any interest in a trade or going to college was seemed like, oh, what are you doing? Like, you're going to go nowhere. But it's so silly, because what we fail to realize is, okay, I understand, yes, and like in my situation, I'm going to get my hands dirty for X amount of time. I get that, but that doesn't mean that my starting point is going to be where I'm going to be in 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, where the case is. That's an entry point. That entry point could lead you to who knows what, where, and like it could lead you to sales. It could lead you to business ownership. It could lead you to advancement opportunities beyond like supervisory situations where you're not getting your hands dirty. And there are situations where, especially in entrepreneurship, which I'm big on pushing, where your income potential is unlimited. You're not basically, the glass ceiling isn't what it would be for, like, say, another job, for example, and you are rewarded for your efforts. So the harder you work and the smarter you work, it's going to be expected that you're going to be compensated accordingly, as long as you're running your business properly, if that is what you're doing. So it's amazing to see all these things. I mean, I love being out in the field. That's a part of the job I love the most, being mobile and all that. There are not many careers that are going to give you that opportunity.
I wonder though, like, how, as like, because we're homeschoolers, so how can we expose our kids to these things? How can we make sure they realize these things? Like, I know in schools, for example, when you get to high school, there's those trades-based courses you can take. Shop, you can take automotive, you can take, well, I know at the local high school here, there's courses you can do in like wiring and I'm trying to think, welding, like there's different things you can do. So, but when you're a homeschooler, that's like difficult because you don't have the equipment, you don't have the expertise, like unless you actually have somebody like, say, one of the parents or a family friend or an uncle or a grandfather that knows these things, and again, you can't, I've never heard of somebody being able to do a co-op and fully homeschool because they don't have the insurance. So I know like there's certain situations where I know people that have put their kids in part-time homeschooling and part-time at the school.
Yes.
Or, I mean, some people have chosen to send their kids to school at that point so they can have access to those things. But what if we're, some of the listeners might be a homeschooler that wants to expose their child to these things, but wants to keep homeschooling and fully homeschooling. So do you have ideas about how they could talk about these things and expose their child so they're even just aware of what's out there? Because so many times, like, I've looked at that website you suggested earlier and been like, whoa, I had no idea. I think of trades like, I think, plumber, electrician, mechanic. Like, I don't really think beyond that until I started looking into it and was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. It can be very overwhelming for sure. And you kind of wonder, obviously, where do I fit in the grand scheme of all this? And that's an amazing question. I think there's a lot of things that we can discuss with respects to that. I guess it depends on obviously age range and so on and so forth. But I find that a lot of school boards and a lot of, not even just school boards, like a lot of different organizations are doing an amazing job at doing a lot of career exploration fairs that are specific to skilled trades. So I was part of one in Milton a couple of weeks back with the Halton Catholic Board. And we had essentially people from different industries, unions, companies, and so on and so forth. They're speaking to the students and giving them their stories and how to get in, and so on and so forth. I posted that in my group and kind of put the invitation out to the greater community. I think we had a few homeschooling families from the group that are in the group that came to that. So looking for those opportunities. Where
do you find those? Like, where are those advertised?
So that I like whenever I catch wind of it, it goes in my skilled trades mentorship group. So
Okay, perfect. So people can join that, and then they can find the ones that you know of. Okay.
Exactly. And whenever because sometimes there are different co-op teachers, different guidance counselors, or just individuals in the community, union reps and all that send me messages with that. And I just put it right up there. So Level Up was another one, which was, I believe they had a couple of different stops in Ontario. Level Up was earlier, a couple months back.
October and November,
yeah, something like that. And that was phenomenal what they did with that. And those opportunities, there's many more. There's tools in the trades boot camps, those opportunities. And I think at the very least, I think realistically, if we're looking, I guess, for a younger crowd, I think it's just more so kind of opening up the dialogue and sharing the dialogue, and kind of I think it starts there, because obviously students and children are going to be influenced by how their parents are perceiving and kind of their perspectives, more or less. So if their overall view is negative on the skilled trades, then that's gonna permeate and kind of continue onwards. But if we're able to kind of showcase some of the role models that are in these industries, and there's so many of them that you can find online, it's amazing, and they're out there and they're telling their stories, and you can see it for yourself. You have real proof and evidence of individuals that are successful and fulfilled in what they're doing, and you could just see it in the content that they're providing. I think that's a huge motivating piece. I mean, yes, some of them do school visits and all that, but they do provide so many things on social media that, and a lot of them are very accessible too. Like you can send them a message and they'll reply. They're very good that way. You have amazing opportunities in the community. I know that Habitat for Humanity, I know you can get involved in that and kind of start getting involved in construction and kind of getting a general overview of the landscape and kind of getting some experience there. I think that's important for younger students, getting into like the Home Depot workshops, for example, simple stuff.
Yeah, those are free too, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah, they are. Like it's it just, I think from such a young age, like you can really influence the narrative, like even just doing simple things around the house and kind of getting them active, getting children active in that regard, and really just kind of showing the importance of this. I know when I was a lot younger, my dad always stressed the importance of treating everybody pretty much the same. Like you should treat the doctor as well as you treat the welder or the plumber. Like there should be no difference at all. Yeah. Because my dad was a chef, so he himself was a skilled tradesman and worked his way up to becoming an executive chef and then a restaurateur. So he fully understood the whole, I guess, the importance piece there, whereas it wasn't reciprocated with my mother, unfortunately. But it is what it is, obviously. Now, yeah, I think a lot of it does stem from that, because realistically, you won't explore those other options if the overview and the and the perspective is negative, because you won't see the value in doing such, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because like growing up, like I said, like it was always pushed that no, you go to university, and it's like I personally never ever explored trades, and I don't think personally it would have been a good fit for me from who I am, but I should have at least looked into it more. Now as an adult, like I know more, but yeah, it's just. So I've kind of, guiding my own kids, like kind of looking into this more. I know something like too, I was thinking about that, take the opportunities when there are little opportunities, like can think of, now it's not a skilled trade, but it's a hands-on type thing. Like this could be translated to a skilled trade where like yesterday I had to take my daughter to an orthopedist and she had to have a mold made of her foot and everything. So then I'm like, hey, like what kind of education did you do to get this job? And like, how many years was that? And like, what pathway did you do? Like just chatting as he's doing the foot mold. And he was more than happy to answer my questions. Yeah. Or like reaching out to somebody in the community that like that's an electrician or a plumber or a whatever trade. Sorry, I go back to those, the ones that come to mind. But like, and asking them, people are generally very open to talking about their career. So.
Absolutely. And yeah, why did you get into, like, what got you here? And exactly, generally speaking, most individuals will be more than happy to share their story and to kind of provide, I guess, their story as a source of inspiration and motivation, just because you don't know where they were like 10, 20, who knows how many years ago, where the case is. And very, even on just online, networking with people online, how many people I've met and how many people I talked to through this initiative that have been very, very open to helping or giving information if I have any questions about their work in particular, and so on and so forth. These people are out there, and it's amazing if you put your hand out how many people will reciprocate. So but yeah, interesting what you're saying with whole the university mentality, and obviously what that mentality has been like for such a long time and how it still exists. Like I mentioned, it is getting better. There are schools out there and teachers out there that are doing an amazing job at promoting that pathway and so on, which is great. And I'm not going to lie, I can speak from both perspectives, because I went to university. I did 5 years. I did teachers college concurrently with my criminology and French degree at the same time as I was building that business and working in that industry. And then I get out there, I'm teaching for 10 years and had a good run, had a good experience, but things just drew me more to the pool business. And now that I've obviously sold that, now I'm moving into this consulting piece, which is kind of a utilization of all my experiences and skill sets.
It kind of just changes over time. Yeah. And I think that's important to have those conversations with our kids as well, is that what you choose to do isn't necessarily exactly what you're going to be doing forever. Yeah. Because there's so much pressure to be like, oh, you're in, grade 9, got to figure out what you're doing for the rest of your life. And it's not like that.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that. I think I agree with you on all fronts there. All the pressure, you have to take math and sciences and do, you have to get 90s in them, or else you can't get into this university program and this and that. Well, there might be a couple of fish in that classroom that you're trying to get to climb a tree. And
exactly, 100%.
It's just not, you know what I mean? You're doing them a disservice by putting these expectations on them. Yeah, it might work for some individuals, and fine, you know what I mean? All the power to you. But that, coming back to, I guess, the first point that you made just recently, you just got to keep an open mind and just, kind of, it's tough, because we're gone from the days of, you the mentality is, okay, you have to go to school, you have to get good grades, get a good job, work there for 30 years, retire when you're 60, 65, get the gold watch on your wrist, and then go into retirement. This just it's not the case anymore. And if I look at it in my perspective, how many things I thought I was going to do and how things were going to go, it's never gone according to that plan.
Yeah. It's nice too, with homeschooling, and I mean, you can do this even if your kids are in school, but having those conversations and having those, the whole thing of making a fish climb a tree and judging it based on that. Well, I find with homeschooling, you don't have to make the fish climb the tree. You can give the fish some water, and it's nice because then you can kind of tailor it to them. I think it's easier to do that with homeschooling, if it was still possible, if your child's in school, to kind of guide them that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just important, I think, in general, there's so many different things that we can do. I mean, obviously we've talked about a couple of things there, but I think it just needs to be giving parents, everybody, just in general, and I think there's a lot of fear of the unknown and not knowing certain, I guess, pathways and all that, and that's fine, but there are resources or opportunities to seek the information to understand that a bit better, because I think there's a bit of that fear as well, where it's okay, well, I don't even know what to do here. Well, and I respect that, but it always comes to how are you going to respond to that. And it's going to happen no matter what. So
when I was in high school, we had a whole tech trades wing in our high school, and I remember I wanted to take an automotive class. I don't know why. I wasn't not a car person or anything, but I never took the class because I was kind of discouraged from taking that class. But it was okay for me to take the graphic design class or whatever, that one, but not the automotive one. In retrospect, I probably am happy I didn't do that, because a lot of the boys in that program were rather not as welcoming to the girls as some of the other areas in the field. But I mean, here's me at 47 being super proud of myself because I finally was able to figure out how to refill the windshield wiper fluid in my car. I'm I am such a loser that it's taken me until 47 to understand the basics of underneath the hood of my car. But I mean, I think I agree with all of what you guys have been saying about how it's important for us as parents to be able to give our kids opportunities to explore things that they're naturally curious about, or that we may just want to give them life skills. It doesn't mean that they have to become a skilled automotive person just because they want to know how their car works. But maybe learning how to refill the water the windshield wiper fluid leads to wanting to know more about what's underneath an engine. And that might lead to wanting to take an engine apart. And then that might lead to becoming a mechanic, right?
But like giving the opportunity. Because if you never open the hood and look at it, then you might not even know you're interested,
Absolutely.
So I was thinking a little bit as I was thinking about being in that automotive class and watching all the other kids or wanting to be in there, that concept of women in the trades too is another big myth, myth in the skilled trades thing. So are there any other like common myths or misconceptions about skilled trades that we haven't covered that you think would be important to talk about, or that you've seen, or how we can solve them outside of the regular day?
It's there are quite a few that are out there for sure. I mean, we've hit on quite a few in terms of kind of not being seen as one for like not an option for those that are educated. That's like a backup career option, dirty work or not respectable work, not well paying, so to speak, and all that. And the one with the women in the trades piece is certainly there too. I do know that they are mentioning that I believe apprenticeship numbers and enrollments have been increasing in that regard, which has been great. And I think there are so many amazing women that are doing an awesome job with promoting the trades. And I can think of you have Jamie McMillan, for example, who's doing a lot of work at the school level and beyond with talking about her story and promoting her work. Brandy Farring, who's kind of getting into a lot of amazing work herself and has been doing a lot of amazing work. She's got an amazing track record and resume too. She's the head of the Fair Trades Toolbox. So bringing a lot of these, I guess, issues to light, like the gender issues, the harassment issues, and all that. And a real beacon for so many people. Julia from the Brick Chick Masonry, for example, is another one. These people are out there, and there's so many amazing individuals that you can easily write out to them and see their material and essentially what they do and what they've done. And it's such a source of inspiration for those to see, okay, this is where I could be in so many years. You have living proof of that. And I think what's important is that no matter what the stereotype is, there's always going to be somebody that's had to face that challenge and that stereotype and that misconception or the myth or whatever the case is. And it's important for those individuals to have their voices heard and to have them showcased as long as they're comfortable with it, obviously, because that's ultimately the most authentic way and the best way for other people to look at that from the outside and say, okay, this individual's essentially tackled this issue or is tackling this issue. And because of that, this has kind of almost paved the way in a sense, or either which way will be a good source of motivation to continue that moving forward, just so that people feel safe in whatever realm it is and comfortable and secure in not just the trades. I mean, I think the work that a lot of these individuals are doing goes beyond just the skilled trades in of itself. I think this is just in general, because some of these issues, I think, we're talking about misconceptions in trade. It's not just a skilled trades thing; it's a societal thing too, right? I mean, you see the gender issue and harassment issues and all these different things coming up in different workplaces, not necessarily just in skilled trades. So, I think it's important just that these individuals have their stories out there, and that people have the opportunity to listen to them. And they have to come from individuals who have their boots or had their boots on the ground at some point. I think that's just the best way to go.
Okay, so if we're thinking about trades for our kids, what benefit or opportunities do you think that skilled trades offer, especially young people?
Great question. So I think we can talk about a couple of different ways. I mean, the great thing about it, first and foremost, is it doesn't require you to have a 4-year degree necessarily. So it's not like you have to go to school for 4 years minimum. I mean, you and I, we all know that that's just the entry point. Like a BA, bachelor's is, it's good, but doesn't carry the same weight as it once did. So like grad work is more than often going to be the prerequisite for anything, really. That's not necessarily needed here. And I guess from a monetary perspective, you are in class, you're paying your tuition, you're not making money when you're in class, that type of thing. Whereas in the trades, in apprenticeable situations, you're being paid to learn your trade. And generally where you're starting off at is a percentage of what the fully licensed individual who's the journey person makes. And it's always a very decent like starting amount, no matter how it is that you're going to slice it. So you have the opportunity to learn a trade, to get paid and learn at the same time, in addition to learning amazing transferable skills that you could use in different areas and so on and so forth. Or say, for example, you decide, after 2 years of doing, say, a plumbing apprenticeship, I don't like plumbing, I don't want to do this anymore. Those skills aren't going to go to waste. You've been paid that whole time to be in that apprenticeship. You can essentially do work at home. Like if you have things that need repair, you could potentially be fixing them and not having to rely on calling somebody else for it. And you have skills that you've learned in that realm that could carry forward in a different workplace or into a different trade, right? You're going to have to be in a situation where you're going to have to potentially work in a team. You're going to have to manage your time. You're going to have to obviously look at blueprints and so on and so forth. Like a lot of things can cross over, both hard and soft skills. So it's not a waste by any means. So knowing that, it's not like you're putting money into something that you might not get a return from. Like there's definitely a return that would be there, no question. So there's that aspect of it. And knowing that you have pretty much endless opportunities at your fingertips, from advancement opportunities, supervisory opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities, sales, and all that kind of stuff, training, education. Maybe after 10 years, 15 years, you say, what, I want to take this plumbing certificate and go teach at a school. You could do certain coursework to make that happen, and you'll be welcomed in with open arms. So you have so many avenues, whereas in some careers, like that entry point is the exit point. There's no room for growth at all. So it's kind of tough to promote a career choice that doesn't have any of that available. Now, the other side that I really like about it is the fact that, let's face it, like artificial intelligence is here. It's clearly going to be here to stay, and it's rapidly evolving before our eyes. You have robotics and so on. While there are positives to the emergence and development of these technologies, there's obviously the concern with the amount of careers that are going to suffer as a result. And the one thing that I think you can even look up any list online in any published article that talks about the top 10 or top 20 list of endangered careers, if you want to call it that, you're hard pressed to find a skilled trade on that list, just because these skilled trades require the human operation element in order for the work and the service to be done properly. I don't know about you, but I don't want my hair cut by a robot anytime soon. So like, these are things that just they require that human operator. They need a human touch, and it's something that I don't see changing in our lifetime personally.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I never really thought about how artificial intelligence would affect trades versus not affecting it. Yeah, like how it's they're less affected by it.
Yeah, I'm seeing in some ways it's helping, it's supplementing it. Like I'm seeing some of these things online, different technologies, different programs, even VR, AR, to help kind of get people. And actually, that's another thing too, when we get into, I guess, getting kids into trying trades out, like so many different AR, VR programs where you can kind of almost like kind of test drive trades and stuff like that. And you can see that at fairs too, which is really cool.
Well, that's like cool.
Yeah, like first time I saw it was that Level Up in Mississauga. I was blown away by it, and I think that's something we can certainly embrace, and is very positive. Like, for example, like different tools for like AR, VR, and like AI for assisting individuals, like with measuring, cutting, like in the carpentry trades. I don't know exactly what that particular technology is, but I saw it recently online, and it was basically using, I think, Apple Vision and specific apps, and it was basically there to record measurements and document all that. Like it's beyond pen and paper. Like it was mind blowing what I saw. So yeah, if anything, it'll be there to assist and supplement and help with efficiency more than anything. Even these amazing AI programs help with scheduling and running your business and your CRM. Like it's all positive stuff. But I do understand, yeah, there is the other side of it as well. But
yeah, there's that technology. I never would have considered that. I've never been to a trades fair, so that you can actually like try out a trade through this. I forgot what you call it. Is it VR?
Yeah, that's right.
Reality?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, yeah. I've never seen that. That would be really neat, I think, for some of the kids that are interested to be able to try that out. Or
yeah, and there are like I've seen quite a few companies, unions come with their welding simulators, which is really neat. There's the Skills Ontario Trades Truck, which is incredible. I had the chance to check this out at Trade Tracks in Elora last spring, and I took my entire family went there, and I took my son, and he was in the trades truck. It has a painting simulator, so you can work on your spray painting technique. You have a machine operator simulator, so you're operating an excavator. It's all like you can't get better than that, in my opinion. So that trades truck,
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it goes from like fair to fair to fair, and it's I say if you have the opportunity to take advantage and to check it out, I would definitely do it.
Yeah, I think even if you had a child who was quite interested, I mean, obviously exposure too, but if you had a child, then it might even be worth traveling to do something like that. That's pretty awesome.
100%. And what I liked about Trade Tracks is Trade Tracks had like all heavy equipment all out in the field, and there was even like a real life mini excavator set up for people to go on there and try it. People, you can climb into the loader. Like obviously that one wasn't in operation, but like you really got to get your hands onto some of these pieces. You had tool companies showcasing their tools. I mean, even just for kids, like I brought my kids there. My son is a little bit older than my daughter. He was 7 at the time, and even just for him, it just opened his eyes up completely. That's the stuff that is good to expose them to, just to kind of just to show them. Obviously, this is what makes the society run, essentially. So, these opportunities are out there for sure. Just have to look for them.
Yeah. So my husband works in the golfing industry, so he has been part of that for over 15 years now. He's been part of the golf industry. And this past winter, he was working on creating golf holes at a local golf course. And so he had all the big machines. So I got to take my daughter, who is 8, and she was helping daddy in the excavator and pushing. She got to pick something up with the claw. And she was like, Mom, look at me. I'm like, I've never been in an excavator before. But it was like, hey, you went up on me. But it was really interesting. Just later, I got to sit in the bulldozer. And, as I said, I'm an old lady. And here I am, like, little kid in a bulldozer. But I didn't do anything in it. But what I was really fascinated was that they're not just push this button and push forward. There is you have to use every single appendage to make the thing work. And now also there's so much technology involved with these machines. Like, it is astronomical how much tech is actually involved in these big machines. And I was also thinking on the AI aspect. I know my husband has talked a few times about how they've come out with mowers, like the mowers that actually can judge whether they're on the green, and they will cut the green and stop at the appropriate time. So you just basically you program the mower and it does it itself. And then it goes back to its little base at nighttime, and then when it's done its job. So there's so much, and if kids are into technology, it doesn't mean they have to become a computer programmer. There's so many things in the trade that use technology that they can merge their passion for technology with their passion for a particular industry and find a way to make them work together. It's not just one thing. And
even just just simple thing like that, now everybody's able to develop an appreciation for it. Right. And just an understanding of the complexities there and the talent that required to make these things work. So at the very least, you've accomplished that. Right. Not saying that, okay, now, you're going to have a full family of machine operators, but at least now the dialogue can be like, oh, wow, what a fascinating line of work that is, and so on and so forth. And just kind of creating that instead of going, why would you even bother? Don't even who cares? The kind of stuff that I heard quite often. Right. Yeah. Well,
because I always think of, we all look at the machinery on the side of the road and kind of be like, right. But watching my husband sculpting ground to make a specific kind of path and plan, and think of all the things that are involved in moving the machinery to make it work in a way that's going to turn whatever he's doing into the vision that he has in his head. Because I can't see that. I can't see what he's envisioning, but it's totally amazing. And I'm watching the guys out on the road and the things that they do to make those make the road perfect and smooth for us. I remember not recently, but a couple years ago, we moved into a pretty new development, and they hadn't paved the driveways yet. So one day, this paving crew shows up, and I've never seen a team work so efficiently in my life. There was like 10 of them, and they just went bam, 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 and every person on that team had a specific job, and they like worked like clockwork, and they were amazing. And my kids were like out on the front entranceway watching them as closely as they possibly could, because it was fascinating. Kids are fascinated by people in the trades. Have you ever noticed that? They love it. Why do we discourage that natural curiosity? I don't understand.
Kids themselves, like, instead of playing with the little Tonka trucks, are playing with the full size thing, right? So in a way, it's a bit of that. But kind of going back to what you're saying about your husband, the sculpting, and so on and so forth, like, it's an art form. It's, you know what I mean? I think that sometimes you don't realize that. Even honestly, and you could find artistry in pretty much any trade, from plumbing work, electrical wiring, all that kind of stuff. You can see it for yourself, even as a layperson. Just go, that person really put this is a passionate trades individual who really cares about what they're doing, and they view their work as an art form, right? And then you can see the ones that don't. Obviously, that's the other thing with the trades, is that sometimes it can be very easy to distinguish that. But it's it is fascinating for sure, and the kids do find it fascinating. You're right. We should be more encouraging and channeling that curiosity and that interest.
Yeah. If you have kids that are curious about trades, and they're in their middle, late teens, and they're looking for a summer job, try the maintenance department of a golf course. Because they get an opportunity to try lots of different things. They may be the guy who's in charge of the, I want to say weed whacker, but I get in trouble for that, for the line. Right? So they may be in charge of being that person that has to carry around the weed whacker forever, but they may also have opportunities to see how to fix the machines, because they have to fix the carts as fast as they possibly can. They may be fixing irrigation lines, so they get experience learning about plumbing. They get to experience things like landscape design and gardening. So there's lots of different opportunities, and a lot of the golf course industry does look for younger people that are able to work from the summertime. So just as an opportunity, it's not, I don't know how all the trades are, but that's just one I'm familiar with that I can say can be helpful if you're looking for a job in the summer as a student. So
yeah, I think it's important. I think you're touching on a really, really, really good point here. So I think it's when we're looking for those part-time opportunities, those summer opportunities, from whenever it is that they're able to gain employment, that we're very strategic in keeping things like that in mind. So you get the job at the grocery store or whatever the case is, but like look at like the end goal. Like, if trades are an option, or even just for just general knowledge of how things work and how to do simple repairs and things in the future. A golf course, for example, working in the pool industry is another one, because in the pool industry, you're exposed to a wide range of other skill sets. Like, there's electrical, automation, water chemistry, plumbing. There's mine was leak detection, gone to underwater repairs, construction, concrete. Like, we can go on with that. And it was my first, I guess, introduction into it was just basically being in the maintenance aspect of it, just doing basic cleaning. That kind of made me go, okay, I want to explore this deeper. I want to move forward with this. And then you open up a pool cleaning company. Cleaning company turns into pool service and repair and construction, renovations, and it just goes out that way. And just even for like, amazing opportunity if you just keep it on a summer job, and just a good opportunity to network. Even, like, who knows who you'll meet in these situations. Or say if you're that person who's dead set, I want to be an electrician, and you're, say, 15, 16 years old, maybe you get that job at Gary Electric, just helping, your shop helper, wherever the case is, doing menial tasks. Well, what might seem menial at the beginning, but what can end up helping you network and maybe helping you find a contractor who walks through that door who's going to give you an apprenticeship. You never know. But being strategic about how you go about that, I think, is something that's important, and looking for those opportunities for growth. I love that example with the golf industry. Where I am, there are quite a few golf courses, really nice golf courses too. And I think it's just important that we kind of keep that in mind when we're looking for someone, or having our children looking for opportunities.
Yeah, I think too, like, I know, for example, right now, I mean, I don't know if this actually classifies as a skilled trade, but I mean, it's definitely hands-on. I haven't really looked at all the big, huge list of all the skilled trades and remembered what they all are. But anyway, yeah, like, so my daughter actually right now, is out helping somebody, they own their own business for, like they do yard work, snow removal, all that kind of stuff. And so
Yes.
she's actually just volunteering today to help shovel. And I know like they were trying to figure out how to look at the snowmobile problem that was happening, like things like that. Like it's just exposure to that. And she's too young to be hired, but she was like, oh, I really want to get a job with that sometime in the winter. And it's like, okay, well, you're too young. And he's like, oh, well, you could be a volunteer if your mom's okay with that. So I was like, sure, go ahead. Like,
Amazing.
so sometimes opportunities come up like that. And yeah, like it's not, glamorous maybe, but she's excited, and who knows, it might lead also to they see like she's a really good worker, so they might see that and hire her when she's the age they can.
That's right.
And then I also wanted to mention I found this really cool website, and it's Skills Canada Nova Scotia. So I mean, we're talking a lot about Ontario because we're all in Ontario, from Ontario, and all that, but this one, it says Skilled Futures Virtual Experience, and they actually have like a whole bunch of things about trades. Then they have like little like interviews about different things. They have even some like a section called Skilled Futures for Women, and they have interviews from different women in the trades. They have stuff here about so carpentry, automotive, marine engineering, fish tracking, aquaculture, mining, automotive EV technology. I don't even know what that is. You know, robotics, gaming, and on it goes. And then they even have this Skilled Futures virtual experience activities. And they have different virtual activities that you can do in different trades right on the computer. So I don't know, I'm going to be looking at that more later because that's pretty cool. It's a Canadian resource and can expose our kids more to careers. And I really like that they have that section on women because, as we know, I mean, a lot of times women are either discouraged from trades or there's issues involved with getting involved with trades. I do know one woman that's a plumber, but you know, she's had situations where she goes to somebody's house and they're like, hi. And she's like, well, I know you didn't expect a woman plumber, but I am here as your plumber because it's just people don't expect it. They don't. And I think it's changed a little bit, but it's still a ways to go. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
So.
Please send it. I'm curious to see it. There's honestly the plethora of resources out there, like different videos kind of showcasing different trades and kind of like the elements in them and all that. It's a lot. There's a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, like a lot of the stuff, like these fairs and stuff, happen near the Greater Toronto area, and I'm sure in other provinces too. They happen near the big cities, and if you're not near one, then yeah, I mean you can plan a trip and all that, but it might not be something you can afford or have the time and energy to do. So I think there's probably lots more. As if we looked for these kind of resources online, we can still expose our kids.
If like I know in my area, there are a lot of schools that are doing local career exploration nights. So like the local high school will have their version, and they'll have local contractors show up and so on and so forth. And I have put that out, like the ones that I've been aware of, I put that out in the group, and they've been pretty welcoming with individuals from the greater community. So I would kind of encourage the same thing. Like if that is what's happening potentially in your community, even though like it might be a smaller community, for example, that maybe you can see if you're able to attend, even if you don't attend that particular school, just as a community member interested and engaged in what they're offering there. Generally what I've seen is that the schools themselves have been very welcoming to others. So looking for those opportunities, I think is important. So
yeah, I wonder if it can even be done within like a homeschool group, depending where somebody lives. Like they might have access to parents that have different kinds of careers. Some of those parents might be in a skilled trade, and then they can go and just have a night where maybe they do a little presentation and chat. I mean, it would depend on the parent. Not all would be comfortable with that, but perhaps they'd be comfortable doing a presentation, or perhaps they'd be comfortable like one-on-one, like answering some questions, having kind of like an information interview. I know we did that with my one daughter for some of the things she was interested in. Like it wasn't skilled trades based, but I mean, it still applies that she just had like a list of questions and she asked them and got an idea, like, what's your favorite part of your job? What's the worst part? Like, do you wish you had gone a different route? Like, what kind of things led you here? What kind of education did you need? Like, are you happy with the pay? Like, just a whole lot of different things you can ask somebody. It's pretty cool.
I think, having that face-to-face that's the best, truthfully.
Yeah.
I mean, you have all the information online too, which is good. Don't get me wrong. Depending, it's. I would still consult that too. But if you have somebody who's right in front of you,
Yeah. Way better.
Yeah, and you'd be amazing. Like on these social media groups, Facebook groups. Like how many amazing individuals are out there that are all about helping other people. Like I know I've met one of my key mentors. He's in Connecticut. I mean, I'd have no other way of meeting him. Even connecting with him in the first place had it not been for Facebook and certain there's actually one specific forum that him and I initially met up on. Like there are these opportunities everywhere. And when did I meet him? 15 years ago, I think. And that was when obviously social media it was in a different form and had different functionality and so on and so forth back then. So yeah, and he was so instrumental in my development in my industry and ultimately why I was able to make the next step in my business. So the thing is, you have to be willing to do that and willing to be accepting of that. Like I find a lot of times that's the key step is putting yourself out there, right? So
yeah, it's true. But that's with anything, like any kind of career, you have to be willing to do some networking to get into it, to further yourself in it. Like it's just the way it is.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Like it's critical to any industry.
Okay, so let's say we have a kid who's interested in the skilled trades.
Yes.
What advice would you give to them?
Good question. So I would say once again, keep an open mind. Don't associate success and fulfillment with only a handful of skilled trades, and don't consider just the stats and projections from a salary perspective as the only reason for wanting to pursue that certain trade. I know that I was dealing with a lot of students in the last couple of weeks who they all wanted to be in the electrical trade, for example. And I love the electrical trade. I think it's a fantastic trade, but I do a deep dive and try to understand the motivations, and those motivations often, not always, were not really, they didn't have much substance to them. So it was all, okay, well, let me know what's the, tell me why does this interest you, why you want to pursue it. And it was either monetary or I just, I like working with my hands and so on and so forth. I'm like, well, working with your hands doesn't necessarily mean that, if you know what I'm trying to get at. So I think it's important to kind of consider, like, yeah, there's so many of these trades that are out there, and it's not just the three that we talked about and so on. And that, you can look at the salary statistics, but what they fail to show you is the bigger picture, like what you can make if you get promoted or self-employed and all that. And nowadays, the people want to get into the big three, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, because they think that those are the only trades that could be there where you could be successful in. And I think we need to consider the other ones in addition to the ones that aren't on the list. Like I mentioned earlier, swimming pool technician, swimming pool builder, landscaper, aircraft tech, and so on and so forth. If you look at, if I take people in my industry, in the swimming pool industry, so yeah, it's not considered as a recognized trade in Ontario per se, but the opportunities and the growth, and obviously from a monetary perspective as well as personally, is insane. I mean, I've seen it for myself. I've seen so many of my colleagues do incredibly well in this industry, better than a lot of these trades from a financial perspective. Mind you, a lot of them are established or in situations where they are in their own businesses or in supervisory roles, but they didn't have to go do the hard apprenticeship route of 4 or 5 years and so on and so forth. The apprenticeship was you show up working for a company at the very bottom, and you worked your way up as you became more confident and competent in what you were doing to be able to take on the next set of tasks. And the good thing is about some of these industries, like some of the ones like in pool industry, for example, and there are others too. I know home automation is similar from what somebody told me. Suppliers and manufacturers, they give you training, and oftentimes it's free training and support because they want you to be successful, because if you're successful, they're successful, and it means that they get less flack from customers because of a poorly installed product, and ultimately they want you to sell more products, so they're going to show you whatever it is, how to fix, how to repair, how to install, how to do everything. And honestly, there were manufacturers that were even showing dealers how to build their own fiberglass pools, from excavation to everything top to bottom in their plants and so on. First, they were doing it, I believe, in Indiana. And now they're doing it more local here. I believe it was Oshawa, if I'm not mistaken. But they have so many of these amazing opportunities to further education that it's really a no-brainer in my opinion. I get like the financial aspect is important, and I get with the economy and so on, and the importance of paying bills. But we have to understand that money isn't enough of an emotional anchor to keep us engaged in a career when we're going through some of the more challenging points, right? Like that's when you start seeing people who are just chasing money. All of a sudden, when times get tough, they're the first ones to throw in the towel. Whereas individuals that were so emotionally invested into the business, into the trade, that have a genuine passion for what they do, they're the ones that tough it out, and ultimately the ones that are able to be successful and have more longevity in what they do. So something to consider, right? And I mentioned it before. You could tell what a tradesperson, not always, but you can generally tell, like, more or less, how they are, like how they view their work, if they view it as an art or if they just view it as a quick buck, by the work that they do. And you could see, if you look at an electrical panel and all the wires are neatly done and very, very precise and so on, you could tell this individual cared about what they did. So it's something to be mindful of. Another piece I would say, advice-wise, is be prepared for rejection. Like when you're first putting yourself out there, sometimes I deal with a lot of individuals who say to me, well, I know there's this shortage and this need for skilled trades workers, but I'm having such a hard time getting a job. What's going on here? I thought there was a shortage. Yes, there is a shortage in the skilled trades, as well documented and talked about from can't tell you from how many years. Having said that, though, it doesn't mean that employers, unions, and companies and so on are going to just hire anybody that walks through the door. You have to take the process seriously, put your best foot forward at all times, apply yourself, and not just cold call. Like, actually make an effort, show up with a resume, simple things, put yourself out there, and be persistent with it, right? That's what we're seeing a lack of, truthfully, is that taking place. Another thing to keep in mind along that realm is the rejection could also be coming because of what's called the ratio piece. Now, in Ontario, that's truthfully the only province that I'm aware of with this stipulation. I really don't know how the other provinces operate with respect to this. A lot of trades are ratio based, meaning that every licensed tradesperson can only legally take on a certain amount of apprentices at a time. So, individuals could be approaching companies and could be told that they're at capacity, meaning that, say, for example, like you have an auto shop and they only have 2 licensed mechanics, for example. Well, those 2 licensed mechanics can only take on 1 apprentice each. So they're at capacity. They can't take on anybody else. So you have to be persistent, and that persistence and patience will pay off, but you just have to continue knocking on more doors. And it's like, okay, well, I approached 30 companies. Well, approach another 30 more. Like, don't stop. We have to remember, look at, I love using the Rocky Balboa example. I think he ended up talking to or presenting his Rocky script to 300 people before he got somebody to agree to take it. And even when they agreed to take the script, they didn't want him in the movie. They wanted to cast their own star. And he said, no, look, I'm going to be the star of the movie. So that was 300 rejections. So 30 in the grand scheme of that is nothing, truthfully.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common in a lot of things, is sometimes kids just give up. Like, it's like, okay, this is just too hard. Like, and I've seen that time and time again, even like in my local area with kids trying to find like a part-time job in high school, like just like, didn't find anything. It's like, okay, well, how many stores did you approach? How many places did you hand your resume? Oh, 3.
Yeah, and how did you approach them is the question, right? Like I mentioned in that article I wrote for your publication there. If you're using the same strategy to order a pizza that you're going to use to try to get a job, it's just not going to work. If you're going to go on your phone and just hit a couple of things and send and that's it, I can assure you that it's going to be a high likelihood that is not going to go the way you want it to. Yeah. So, I mean, and say, for example, like if you're really going all out and you understand the geographic piece too, in terms of where you might be located and in relation to the different opportunities and all that. But even like you mentioned, being strategic, early on, or if for whatever reason not, this is a different situation, getting a job in a different capacity, like as a helper at Home Depot Electrical, as a helper here, or as a plumbing helper. A lot of companies, they even want to see, okay, well, I'm not going to sign you right away. Like, I want to see what you're like and what you like to work with. So they might hire you on as a helper for a couple months, and if they like you, then they'll sign you.
Yeah.
Or even longer. You don't know, but you have to be very, very patient and just really persistent with it. Like, don't be discouraged when you don't get traction. That's just how things are going to be, not just with this in particular, with everything really. It's just something that I think we're so used to the Amazon Prime mentality of just clicking and getting whatever we want, that we kind of think that that's across the board.
I was going to say, from somebody who was hiring staff in a position, some of the things that I found was really helpful from my perspective was when people would take the effort to show up when they said they were going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Such a simple thing.
Come in and meet me and shake my hand and introduce yourself. Don't just send me an email saying, hi, I'm so-and-so. Like, actually show up, shake my hand, find a time when I'm going to be there, get to know me, make the effort. And 3, put your phone away.
Yeah.
Because so many, especially the young people, they have their phone and they're distracted and they're not paying attention to the person that they're trying to convince that they're going to, and the other thing I found was that ask questions. One of the things that stood out to me in a conversation I had was a job interview is not just the employer interviewing you. You should be interviewing the employer too, to find out whether or not that's a good fit for you. And I think that totally works in the trades, because if you find out that the job isn't what you expected it to be, it's better to know that before you accept the job than after you've been struggling to try and make it work for you. So.
Sure, and there are key indicators, obviously, to determine that as well. Like, even just as somebody who's in that hot seat interviewing for a job. But I think you make amazing points there. I think it's from a perspective, from an employer's perspective, how often what we consider to be very simple and best practice items are overlooked. It's something that I wish more people knew, but it is what it is.
So do you have any other practical tips for standing out when you're applying for a trade job?
I would say don't be afraid if you deem that you don't have enough experience. For example, like oftentimes people might not even put themselves out there because they feel, I don't have the experience needed, so on and so forth. I get that and completely respect that. However, depending on the situation, in a lot of those situations, you are there to learn. And as long as you show that eagerness and willingness to learn, and you're able to essentially, like you said, demonstrate the commitment, you're there on time, you're doing what you're saying you're going to do, you're not showing up late, even by a couple of minutes is enough to red flag, put up a red flag and so on. Oftentimes with what I used to do, it was very technical, but I was willing to train because I wanted to train individuals the way that I wanted them to learn. I didn't want to take somebody who had experience that I had to essentially undo and erase and then train them my way, for example. So I didn't want to have to take in bad habits and have people who are jaded. I wanted to take people who are clean slates. So sometimes there's a benefit in being an individual with less experience. But what I'm looking for is skill sets that can be transferable. I want to see individuals that are used to working closely with others, good communication skills, good punctuality, all that good stuff. That's what I care about. I care about who you are. I could train all that stuff later on. I'm not taking you to the surgery table and doing open heart surgery. Not to minimize what we do or what I used to do, because it was very technical and it's taken me many years to master the craft. But there are certain things that I would task technicians to do that were not full picture, obviously. But to me, it was, I want to know, how are you going to respond to that criticism? Because I would throw it out there. I'm like, I see you don't have any swimming pool experience. I see you don't have any experience doing X or Y and Z. I want to see what the response is, because I'm throwing a criticism your way. I'm challenging you in a way. What are you going to give back to me? If you're going to give me back something that is very defeatist and like, whatever, you're not taking it seriously, or, no, listen, actually, I was in a situation very similar to this where I had to come into whatever case it was. Actually, the one instance one individual gave me was he was working on a Formula One team, and he had never done that before, and so on and so forth. But he was so eager and wanted to learn that other skill sets from different experiences was able to benefit him, and so on and so forth. I said, okay, this is somebody who's going to try, who cares, and wants to do something that's going to challenge him. I'm looking for things along those lines, and then even just simple things that I mentioned in that one article that I wrote for the homeschooler publication too, was the candidate has to be the one who is in the driver's seat at all times and be seen as the only one in the driver's seat at all times. Mm-hmm. It could be I understand, like, people want to help and support, and the intentions are all positive to have parents, friends, and relatives, and so on and so forth be involved in the process. But that could be really hindering the candidate's ability to succeed, because it has to be them showcasing their eagerness and skill sets and so on and so forth. That can't be happening if phone calls are being made by somebody else or emails are being sent by somebody else to an employer. And it's something that I see and hear of quite often. And it's just something to keep in mind. And this is, like I mentioned, there was one post I think I did in the mentorship group about a year ago, and the other trades professionals and business professionals that were in there were echoing the exact same thing. So I think it's important to kind of keep that in consideration.
So I can't find my kid a job? Dang it.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's all right. I just was going to sign them up and show them up on the first day of work. Here you go. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So we've been chatting for a while here, but do you have any final thoughts or words of encouragement for Canadian homeschoolers who may be considering a career in the trades?
I would just say, to be honest with you, like, if you're going to be heading into it, head into it with optimism and excitement, like as you should, because this really is an opportunity to open the doors to something that you would have never dreamt of. Like, if I look at myself, like getting that job at the hotel as a pool maintenance technician, who would have known that in a couple of years' time after that I would have started my own business that would have turned into what it turned into. And you honestly put yourself out there, like even if it's like you mentioned, property maintenance, even just simple thing, volunteering. Well, that could lead to potentially like a business situation in a couple of years in landscaping, softscaping. Who knows? Like, it's opportunities are there. It's just we have to put ourselves out there to essentially receive them and accept them. You're not going to get that if you don't put yourself out there. So, and a lot of good people out there willing to help share their story. So be on the lookout for them and reach out to them too. They won't reach out to you necessarily. You have to find them. These jobs aren't going to find you. You have to find them. So it does take a certain amount of initiative, which is going to be vital no matter what you're going to do, whether it's skilled trades, business, relationships, friendships, you name it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Larry. You've been really insightful into talking about the trades and getting my brain thinking about my kids and how to encourage them to move forward. And not all my kids are currently destined for university, but maybe some of their curiosity lies on a hands-on career that we hadn't really thought about before. So I love that you're just encouraging people to explore that opportunity. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come chat with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And even all the other things we've been doing too, the opportunities to be the guest author on the publication has been fantastic. I've really been enjoying that and hoping that those articles are adding value and that people find them helpful.
Yeah, awesome. They've been great. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good chatting with you, Larry.
You too.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Canadian Homeschooler Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation all about the trades. In our next episode, we're going to be talking a bit about Canadian historical fiction and how to add it to your homeschool. If you have any feedback, ideas for topics, or people we should try to connect with for interviews, please let us know. And don't forget to share with your Canadian homeschooling friends. Thanks so much for joining us. Until next time, happy learning.